Hi, welcome. I'm Sarah D, and this is
Dr. D.
Yes, and we are going to have a conversation with Dr. D. And the reason we're doing this is because we have conversations all the time, and I feel like they're enlightening and they're useful for me. And I'm not somebody who's educated in econ or in philosophy. There's all kinds of things he's been educated in. He's one of those overeducated types.
Nobody would agree with you.
Anyway, so the conversation we're going to have today started with a shirt I saw. The young lady with a shirt, and it said, "United in kindness." United in kindness. Now, for us, when we're filming this, the 4th of July is approaching.
It's mañana.
It's mañana, yes. And so behind us, I have a copy of the Pledge of Allegiance as it was adapted to have the under God part in it, which is fine for those who are fine with the under God part. I'm fine with
Under
the under
Eisenhower.
God. Under Eisenhower. And we were
He was
afraid
afraid
of
of communists, so he added that.
yeah, needed that, which is fine, except that it's not fine anymore for a lot of people. And God is actually not divisive. He actually comes to us where we are. And so anyway, the kindness idea was wonderful. United States. Anyway, made me think of the Pledge of Allegiance.
And why?
Well, because the Pledge of Allegiance talks about
So say it.
the United States. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag. You mean say
Yeah.
the pledge? Okay, you want to say it with me?
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
for which
for which it stands. Okay, let's stop right there. And to the republic. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag. Okay.
A symbol.
And a symbol. It's a symbol. And what is the flag a symbol of? It's a symbol of our beliefs and actually
Our republic.
our republic. And I just love the kindness part. Now, our republic has not anything to do necessarily with kindness, but it has to do with our autonomy or our sovereign ability in the United States.
Absolutely.
We're united in the fact that we get to choose.
Yes.
And the republic is...
Well, so I guess before you can really talk about what a republic is, you've got to talk about why we have government to begin with, of any sort. Doesn't matter what kind. You know, what is it that we want from a government?
I guess we want enough boundaries and enough support so that we can have autonomy but not terror.
Yeah, John Stuart Mill talked about that on Liberty. You're absolutely correct, right? So in a very real sense, the fundamental assumptions underlying why we have governments is that the world is chaotic.
I would agree with that.
I don't know what you were going to...
It's a mess and we got to clean it up.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, I don't know what's in your mind or in your heart, and you don't know what's in my mind or in my heart, right? We don't know those things. We can't know them. We have social cues that we pick up, but those social cues...
Accurately or inaccurately.
But those social cues come from things like language, which is a set of rules.
Yes, and there's some boundaries to it. And if we don't...
Exactly.
Otherwise it's just,
Yeah, we can't... Right, so
we may not even know what that means.
If I want your steak, I hit you with my club and I take your steak, right? So those are... And those things are thought of as not being kind.
Exactly.
Right, it's outside of the rules. So the question is, where do the rules come from?
They come from making all kinds of mistakes and then realizing, wait a minute, this actually functions better, so let's try this, and let's try this. And that's what the United States is a try.
Right. And so
It's an experiment.
One of the things we want a government to do, one of the things we need the government to do, is to set a set of ground rules against which we can organize ourselves and participate.
I guess any organization does that.
All organizations do that. You have to have a set of ground rules.
So you either opt in or you don't opt in.
Right. So there's a set of ground rules. Like, I drive on the right-hand side of the road. Mm-hmm. That's a ground rule.
It is.
If I do that in England, It will be surprising to lots of people.
That's interesting. They do it differently. I wonder who started it and then why we didn't. Go
Doesn't
along.
matter.
I know.
Doesn't matter. It just, right? It's a ground rule.
curious.
It's a ground rule. And so we set that ground rule and it applies to everybody. So how do you get that? How do you get a ground rule that's set, that's applied to everybody?
People come into an agreement.
Yeah, people
don't
have to, they have to come into an agreement.
So they came into an agreement when they came over to America.
Or any government in general.
Right.
An agreement was had that
And people opted
somebody's
in.
going to set the ground rules, or these ground rules are going to be set, and we're going to abide by them.
Right.
Okay, so one of the things the government does is it sets ground rules. We call that legislating,
Okay.
making laws.
And we vote the people in that are doing that. So in essence,
Not everybody does that, but yes, we do.
in the United States, we do.
Yeah.
And that's the republic we're talking about.
So we'll get to talking about a republic. We just have to. We're still talking about what a government is.
I always talk about such deep things.
Right? We have to decide what a government does. So one of the things a government does is it sets the ground rules.
Yes.
What happens if I violate the ground rules?
Well, you're not operating within the ground rules.
Well, I'm not operating within the ground rules. So if we have ground rules that we can break whenever we want to, and there's no consequence to breaking them,
And there are no ground
there are no ground rules. So the other thing is that you have to have somebody that administers those rules.
Right.
We call that the administration.
And so, and we've
So
broken that up into the pieces we've broken
We've
it up
got
into. So that we don't have-
legislative
Right.
processes, setting the rules, causing the rules to be enforced.
The legislative causes them to be
No,
enforced.
the administration.
Oh, the administration does.
Now what happens if I'm in an argument with you about whether I broke the rule or not?
Then there's the judicial.
Then we have to judge, well, was the rule really broken? So now we've got the judicial. And so those are the three fundamental things that we want government to do. Set the ground rules,
Keep going.
administer the ground rules, and adjudicate the ground rules.
Keep going.
Okay. And so that's what that's what government needs to do.
Taking notes.
And one of the ways the government can do that is we have a king. And the king sets the rules, administers the rules, and judges you. That's what kings do.
Right.
Right? So that's a monarchy.
Okay.
Okay? And there are problems with that. What happens if the wrong person's king?
Well, if the person's king that you don't like the way they're setting it, then you're SOL.
Yeah, right? So that's a problem. Too much power all in one person's little fingers.
Yeah, people don't do well with it.
Yeah, people don't do well with lots of power. Just like
Well, besides-
rock stars don't do well with lots of money.
Yeah, yeah. Because you really can't know what other people need or want. So giving them autonomy, offering the fact that we have autonomy or sovereignty, that we have choice, as much choice as is possible, and with that choice, the responsibility of, well, if we have that choice, other people have that choice too. So if I have the choice to worship God according to the dictates of my own conscience, so do you. If I have the responsibility or the opportunity to choose what kind of sounds I'm going to make outside my house, how late at night I'm going to do that, somebody else has the right to do that too.
Yeah. So we've got ground rules. And so now the question, so the question, we know what a government needs to do.
You're so
Right?
nice.
If it solves these coordination problems, what rules are we going to live by? How do we make sure that we adhere to the rules? How do we set up the incentives so that we adhere to the rules? And how do we find out how do we adjudicate whether somebody has violated a rule or not? Okay? So those are things that the government has to do. And there's lots of rules that we can set, right? So there's lots of rules that we can set, and we're not going to worry about that. Well, actually, we can say there's three fundamental ways that we think about governments interacting inside of an economic system. And so we can add that layer on later. But right now we're just saying, so governments need to set these rules.
And we want to get to a Republic.
We want to get to a republic.
To the republic for which it stands. The flag stands for the republic. What's the big deal? What is a republic?
And we talked about this
Is it
in one of
Republican?
the...
No, it's not.
We talked
But it
about...
sounds like it.
Yeah, we talked about this in one of the posts we did. When we talked about the political game theory of political economy. And we talked about that. And one of the things that we talked about was the fundamental understanding of, we've got two things. We've got a government and we've got the governed. And now the question is, who's in charge? Is the government in charge or are the governed in charge? If the government's in charge, then you're not a republic.
And if everything's the government's fault,
It's not a...
if you're claiming that, then you're claiming you don't want autonomy.
Yeah. Right. So...
Why isn't the government taking care
Right.
of
So if the government is sovereign, is in charge, is king,
yeah.
right? Then it's not a republic, because a republic presupposes what?
A republic presupposes that the individual is sovereign.
The governed are sovereign.
They have choice, but they also have responsibility, and there will also be censures if they don't keep the rules,
Yes.
right?
Yes, there's
They'll be
rules.
adjudicated.
Right, that's exactly right. So we as individuals, you and I, we agree to a set of rules.
Right.
And we know that we're going to see, so we agree to a set of rules. We have a legislature. Either we set them, in our family, we set them between the two of us. We legislate it jointly. How do we administer it?
In our family?
Yeah.
I tried lots of different ways. I kind of failed.
Now, how do we do it between you and I? This is let's talk about...
We talk.
We talk, right? So the administration...
And we've learned to talk better.
Yeah, the administration, those that administer the rules, and the rule setters are the same group.
Us.
Us.
Yes. And that's the way it is kind of in a republic.
Well, that's the way it is in certain types of republics.
Democratic republics.
Well, no. So,
No?
so let's think about this. Let's think about this. In the United States, is the same group that sets the rules the group that administers them?
No.
No, it's separate.
Sorry, I'm so slow.
That's our kind of republic. Our kind of republic, we separated that, right? But in a parliamentary republic, those two things come together, right? The prime minister...
They're also a republic.
They're also a republic because who do they believe is sovereign?
I guess they believe the individual is.
The individual is sovereign. They've just put together the administration.
In a different way.
No, the administration is part of the legislature. The legislature sets the rules, and it has a subset of people in it, ministers of whatever,
Isn't that just like the Congress and the House?
Well, the Congress doesn't administer.
Did we even have them in these?
What?
Set the rules, administration.
So set the rules is who?
The Congress.
Congress and Senate
That's
in the United States.
Okay.
The administration is?
None of the administration is the president. I guess.
President.
And the adjudication is the judiciary.
Judiciary.
Okay.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Okay, keep going.
So that's the way we've got it set up. If you went to England or Canada, the House of Commons would set the rules.
They're the Congress.
And the leadership in the House of Commons would be the administration.
So their head guy, I can't remember what he's called.
Justin Trudeau.
I mean, his name is Trudeau, but what's he called? Minister?
He's Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
First Minister.
So he's the minister of this group.
He's right. He's like the Speaker of the House and the President combined.
So they have a republic as well.
Yes, because who's sovereign? What's required for...
If you're not a trucker, you are. But if you're a trucker, you're not.
Oh, now you see, now we're getting into the gray areas of how governments can overreach and give up being a republic, even having all of the trappings of looking like
and
one.
little slivers.
Yeah, I would claim that when we allow the government to make too many choices for us, we have given up being a republic, and we're no longer a republic. You can have elected ministers, and there are many autocratic states that have elections that have republic in their name, right? So the People's Republic,
China.
right? They've got the word republic in there, and
Maybe they're getting there. Maybe it's an affirmation, a declaration.
so one could
their
always
heart
hope,
is in the right place.
right? The North Korea is also claims it's a republic. It's clearly a dictatorship, right? And but the point is that the distinction between a republic and any of these other forms is who is technically sovereign. And how do we keep us as people sovereign?
In the United States?
Yeah.
Help me.
Okay, so
No, we just
so there was
vote people in that we
right,
trust.
so there's a ruling just went down. So there was a ruling in 1972 or something. I can't
Maybe
remember what it was.
the Wade.
Roe versus Wade.
Oh, the way we keep ourselves sovereign is to keep it so that the power is more in with the states and with the people closer to home as opposed to on the federal level. Because if it's on the federal level, then we end up being more like a kingdom or something.
So we're what you'd call a compound republic.
Not even a democratic republic.
No, we've got a Republican form of federal government,
Oh man.
and below that we have a Republican form of state governments, and below that we have a Republican form of local governments, all of which cascade down to the individuals.
I only heard a democratic republic. You didn't even say that.
No, we're a compound republic. That was Vincent Ostrom used the term compound republic when I studied at the feet of
Them.
yes, Vincent Ostrom. He has a wonderful book called Theory of the Compound Republic. Everybody should read it.
But we call it democratic republic. So
No, we just call it a republic. We don't call it a democratic
so
republic.
to the republic for which it stands. So we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, united in kindness of America, and to the republic for which the flag stands. The republic that the flag stands for is that we are sovereign,
Yes.
and that the Congress sets rules that we kind of vote in.
We
kind
agreed
of
to.
through them. And if we don't, then we have to vote them out, or we have to become them, or something.
But can they set any rule?
Can they set any rule? Well, it seems like, with the two parties that we have, they're always warring against each other, so not too much can get done at once.
Can they set a rule, shut up Hanson?
Mr. Miller did.
But can the Congress set up that rule? First Amendment, freedom of speech. No, they cannot.
But they're doing it. They're trying to do that with all this hate speech stuff.
I don't disagree that
So
they...
those are the pushing the edges of trying not to be a republic and trying to take away your sovereignty.
Yes.
Watch out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then also of hate speech would be if we just are united in kindness.
Yeah. But so the idea is that our republic was set up on three presuppositions.
Okay.
Three rights that were declared in the Declaration of Independence: the right to
Speech,
life
life, liberty,
and the pursuit of
land.
happiness. But yeah, we say the philosopher said property, Thomas Jefferson said happiness, which is fine. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of utility, if you were an economist. So we have those three rights are inalienably ours.
And if we operate on the kindness thing, that's kind of like the golden rule.
Yes.
Your right to pursue happiness You need to be aware that your right to pursue happiness or play loud music till 5 o'clock in the morning in your neighborhood and drum all night because the moon's out
is
sorry.
limited. You have an issue.
You're not being kind.
You have an issue. Okay, so
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
then
you
what we
are.
did was we had this Declaration of Independence, and we spent some time trying to be a country, and we sucked at it. So we wrote this thing called the Constitution. And what did the Constitution do?
It just helped me.
Okay,
I don't have
so the
answer.
Constitution was, we the people are willing to
order
grant
to-
these rights
That's right, in order to form a more
to
perfect-
the central government, right? These are the rights we give them. All the rest of the rights are not yours. So the Constitution, the body of the Constitution, has the rights that are explicitly granted to the central state.
Right,
They have no other rights.
exactly, except when we try to give it to them.
Right, but they have
Like
no
that
others.
was the Roe versus Wade thing. We gave them that right.
So the question is, what right? Right. And that's a hard one, right? Because regardless of where you stand on things, right? So we're going to assume that not all humans are persons, and if they aren't persons, then we can kill them,
Right.
right? So
I mean, that's the
presupposition, and so genetically human versus anyway. So, but that's I'm not saying that the edges are easy. The edges are hard.
But the individuals and the individual states should be the ones cleaning that mess up or that confusion, not some.
Right, that wasn't necessarily granted to the central government in the body of the Constitution.
Right.
Now, later on, we added the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And that's because we, the people, were afraid the government would just creep and take all of our rights. Which it does do, right?
It does.
So the government is creeping. So we
It's
said,
creeping.
no, here's these 10 things you can't touch. And so that's what the first 10 amendments are. You can't touch these. Now, here's what you're permitted to do. That's the Constitution. Here's what you absolutely cannot do. That's the 10 amendments to the Constitution. First, Bill of Rights, as we call it. That's the Bill of Rights. And so that kind of puts the boundaries. And the government is always going to be pushing into...
And we're always going to be.
And we should always be pushing back against it. That's just the way it ought to be. And we've got less than a minute before it closes.
So, united in kindness. That's kind of what I wanted to leave for this little bit, and also just some explanation about republic, because for some reason I get confused about that, and I didn't learn it in school, and he learned it in Canada. He learned about everything like this in Canada. I don't know what I learned in school. I got really good grades, but I don't know.
I got really bad grades.
I don't know what I learned. And I was educated in Washington State. I don't know why. I didn't learn it. Anyway,
Are you Sarah D?
I am Sarah D. Thank you for joining us for this conversation with Dr. D.
I'm Dr. D. Namaste.
Make it a great day.